It's on me.
What's up? It's your boys Jordan and Abraham. You all know he's a professional runner, so he's your fast friend. I'm an MD PhD student, so I'm your smart friend. Most importantly, we are your friends who read One Piece. This week, the chapter that we read, chapter 1110, I think the title was Planetfall. And as much as I'm annoyed that we still haven't gotten the Vegapunk secret, like I
Mm.
expected last chapter or this chapter to be able to come up and run up on Jordan and be like, "Who's the crackhead now?" After we found out how wrong he was. I can't be mad at Oda for this chapter because this chapter was fire. Jordan, why don't you give me a rundown of some of the stuff we learned this chapter?
Yeah, man, I can't wait to get into my rightness in a couple of weeks. But the obviously the biggest thing in this chapter, we start seeing the Elder Stars within 7 minutes of Vegapunk's transmission. There's a circle on the ground in the empty quarters that we've seen them in, and they've teleported themselves to Egghead as five monsters. We get an amazing double spread of Luffy in front of them, and for the first time, they're called the five Elder Planets. The monsters they turn into, Mercury is the Hoki, a boar thing. Venus is Bakotsu, a skeleton horse. Mars is the Itsumare, a demon bird thing. Jupiter is the sandworm, which is like one of those little things from Dune. And of course, Saturn is the Yuki, which I guess is an ox thing, but he's looking very spider-like still. Over the chapter, Venus turns into a centaur thing, freezes the pacifista. Sanji runs away from the bird one. Luffy gets eaten by Jupiter before Dory and Bragi save him with the child of the sawing sun attack. And also, kind of on the side, the world government chases Bonnie, Usopp stops the ship, and Zoro beats Lucci, which we've been talking about every single week. And now that seems almost like a side afterthought in this chapter.
And that's a really detailed rundown. I like it. I think that covered everything. What do you want to start with? What do you want to go more deeply into with respect to this chapter first?
We already know, man, it's the Elder Stars, bro.
I feel
It's
like we
the
kind
Elder
of have to.
Stars.
Yeah, what a reveal! I I think some because people have been speculating on what they could be ever since Sabo broke into the throne, right? I think, for example, Mars's Phoenix kind of whatever monster that is, that transformation, people had basically speculated correctly, but a lot of these, I mean, first of all, the designs were just phenomenal, and I didn't really have any idea of what to expect with respect to what their abilities might be, what their transformations would be. Yeah,
It's got to be one of the best double spreads that I think we've seen in a series in ages. I mean, just something about
uh-huh.
the size and spectacle of how like giant and evil all of these things look. Plus, one of Oda's real strengths over the course of all of One Piece has always been drawing animals, whether it's hilarious things happening with Karoo and Alabasta or all the different kinds of like smile fruit users where you're getting all these really creative things with Kaido, or freaking eyelashes. I don't even know why I'm only thinking in Alabasta, but like there have been a bunch of hilarious. Chopper obviously is like this incredibly cute figure, and I think so much of the exaggerated art really adds to some of the hilarity that we often experience with these characters. And what we get in this double panel, like I just keep looking at the sandworm at Jupiter and how just like huge its mouth is. It's like, dang, these things really do feel like evil and cartoonish in a way that's seriously like awesome.
It's
It
got
feels
a
so
big
One
mouth.
Piece.
What? Oh, just because it has a big mouth, I feel like it looks evil because it's a big ass worm. But okay, I don't know what kind of traumas you have in you've had in your life where you're just like, yeah, man, his mouth was just too big. It's just
Bro,
way too
are
sus.
you looking at this double
Evil.
frame right now? Like, how is that not
I
something that you're drawn to, bro? It's like, why are these sandworms in Dune so iconic, man? Because they got these big old mouths. That's a part of it.
Crazy.
But I definitely think also one thing that gets overlooked in that panel too, like if there's something special about seeing Luffy just, doing his usual like bouncing gear fifth up and down in front of it, and you really see him juxtaposed against these super evil looking characters. Like all five of them, and they're freaking huge, gigantic monstrosities.
The other big thing is that Luffy is clearly not fighting all five of them. Like we see, um, who is it? The which one is defeated? It's Mars. Mars. You see Mars kind of take down, the force field around the lab. We see um Venus Juro trying to take out the pacifista and stuff. I think one of the concerns a lot of people had for the final battle and power scaling discussion is, if we get all five Gorosei show up and Luffy beats all five of them by himself, it kind of makes them feel meaningless for the end of the story, right? So that's clearly not what we're getting here. War Curie hasn't even done any. It's basically Luffy against just Saturn and and Jupiter at this point, right? So
Yeah, well, it's a good question to figure out exactly how we're gonna get through this. Because once again, like I keep mentioning that we don't know exactly how strong they are, but it does seem pretty clear that they're all gonna be pretty strong. But I think the idea that we're gonna, one of the other things that's always been posited is like, are we gonna end up with the Straw Hats just in a series of 1v1s against the Elder Stars, right? I'm pretty sure just about every time someone sees a character with a sword who's a bad guy, the internet's just like, oh, is Zoro going to fight this person? And I think at this point, it seems pretty obvious that that's not what's going to happen. But I don't
you
know
don't think that's
exactly
gonna
the configure. I don't know the
you don't think that's gonna happen
configuration.
overall?
Zoro fighting Venus just because he has a sword?
I mean, maybe not in this arc, but like at all in the story, you don't expect that to happen at all.
No, no. I don't think we're heading towards a final battle where it's just like Luffy against him and then Sanji faces off against like I don't know, like freaking flying guy and like Zoro faces off against Venus Juro. I think those kinds of things are unlikely. And like the thing I keep coming back to, I know I've broken record with this. The configurations of the final fight in this story are going to have to be more creative than just a series of one-on-ones. I think for it to live up to what we've been expecting and for this series to end up being as interesting as what it could be.
What do you mean? I'm curious as to what you mean by the setup has to be better than a series of one-on-ones. Because I think back to a lot of the most interesting arcs involving the Straw Hats combat-wise. You have, Alabasta and Ennis Lobby that were both set up in the way, right? All of the Straw Hats kind of had their opponents. They had their one. They ran the ones. What 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 do you mean by that? And what would satisfy you if not a series of one-on-ones?
Yeah, okay, okay. I play pickup basketball. They ran the ones. I see you, Abraham.
Run,
I know you're out here balling on the weekends, okay? It like I think at those points in the series it made a lot of sense because we didn't really once again we didn't really have a sense of scale of the One Piece world. And so at that stage, for example, you didn't really have these multiple factions. One Piece was just a story of Straw Hats going to a place, finding out who the evil person is, fighting, corrupt king, corrupt, dictator, like Crocodile. Like okay, it's not corrupt king, but like fighting against Rob Lucci and like the CP9, just whoever's the ones capturing Robin. It's just there's a very clear bad guy who appears in each arc, and we just have to like overcome that person, and then we're able to continue on. What happened, and I think Marineford is a good example of saying here's what that would not look like. If we go to Marineford and it's just like, okay, well now we have Eva and we have Whitebeard, and they all just have to have a series of they each fight one person and then we ended up losing that way, that would have been a much less interesting configuration of what an actual war looks like. I think in large part that's part of what was really not interesting in the end about Wano is you had the potential for a much more interesting like, hey, maybe Luffy and Zoro combine to take on Kaido. You have all of the, you ended up having Kid and Law combine to take on Big Mom, but you had this potential for chaos and war and all these different factions coming together, and then you ended up in what was a series of 1v1s, except for Kid and Kid and Law versus Big Mom, and give me 2 seconds. I think the important thing is that where we are in the story, there are going to be too many factions that matter too much showing up at each part, at each point, for us to end up just in a series of 1v1s against Blackbeard, a series of 1v1s against Im, a series of 1v1s against the world government.
So I get that. I don't think the issue with Wano was that it was a bunch of 1v1 fights. I think it was that there was not enough time to dedicate to one, making the villains that we were fighting feel relevant, right? That was the big thing, where you have the Toby Roppo and bro, like at this point, nobody cares about Sasaki or any of the who's who or whatever, right? Because we had just been introduced to them. We didn't really have any any context for how strong they were supposed to be. And a lot of these fights, like Frankie versus Sasaki, took place in like the span of less than a chapter, right? So there wasn't a lot of hype built up for these characters, and there wasn't much, I guess, I don't want to say effort, but there wasn't much time put into these fights either, right? I think with something like characters like the Gorosei, characters like Akainu, because what I would expect in the final war is, yeah, you do have a bunch of the foot soldiers fighting Straw Hat Fleet and the Marines and whatnot. All of that combat is happening in the background. Those aren't It's like a giant war. But then when you have these big shots like the Gorosei, I expect maybe Dragon to be fighting a Gorosei because I expect Dragon to be involved in the final war. I expect maybe Akainu to fight Sabo because the whole idea of him inheriting Ace's Devil Fruit, Ace's Will, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I obviously expect Luffy to fight Imu. I don't expect someone like Usopp or Frankie or Nami to be fighting elite opponents at that point. But and maybe this gets to somewhat to what you're saying. I expect their role in the story. Them to play their role in the story in a non-combat like centric way, kind of like Usopp in Enies Lobby, right? He shows up, he gets his ass beat by Jabura, and Sanji's like, just because you can't fight doesn't mean you can't help us get out of this situation, right? If it's Nami helping them just be able to navigate to Laugh Tale or whatever it is, if it's Frankie by like building a ship that would rival the Pluton or whatever. So I don't expect every Straw Hat to get a 1v1 at the end of the story because just like in Wano, I don't think there'll be enough time in the story to make all of those meaningful. But these big characters that have been hyped up to us for a long time, like the Gorosei, I absolutely expect maybe Zoro takes on someone like Venus Juro, that Luffy's fighting Imu, that Dragon is maybe fighting one of these guys, that I could see Sanji getting a fight against the Gorosei, and I think it would be very entertaining and very appealing because we've been building up to these characters for so long.
That I think it's an interest. Like if you say that there's different members of the Straw Hat Alliance, or at the very least the like good guy alliance who end up fighting against different characters, I'm a little bit more receptive to that. Although, personally I'd still prefer a little bit more, even if it's like 2-on-1 or some kind of chaos to the battle, those kinds of things going on. It's just to me the idea that it's going to be like, oh, this guy flies, so Sanji's going to 1v1 him. Like the idea that it's a series of Straw Hat one-on-ones, I think is really unappealing to me. I think that would be boring. And that's one of the things that like that's not, when I talk about what we did a whole episode on everything I think is wrong with Wano. I'm saying that's one component of it. And I think that's one of the things that has made Egghead really awesome is the fact that it's not just a series of one-on-ones. You have this feeling of chaos. It's partly what was made Whole Cake Island great. It's like Luffy's in the middle of, it's just got eaten by a freaking sandworm, and he's got eaten by a sandworm, and Dory and Bragi are out here cutting him out. But thinking about the powers of the Elder Stars, I'm curious what you make of the powers. A couple things that I know I noticed. I know you have a couple other observations too. To me, one, there's a lot of the sort of like black lightning that we see on awakened zones. And secondly, we were talking about Venus Juro. I think the way he turns into a centaur, like almost reminds me of some of these, almost reminds me of some like the more hilarious smile fruit users. like this was not like he was not like it was not funny seeing him turn into a centaur and like attack people. But it kind of reminded me of some of these like gorilla dudes who just had like a body on their fist, right? So it's I'm sort of curious what your
Yeah,
reaction to those sorts of
yeah.
ideas, like what their power is, like how it relates to the things we've seen is.
For sure, for sure. I think the idea of them being awakened zones could be interesting. We see how resilient they are, right? Like they're just absolute damn. No matter how much damage Luffy's dishing out to someone like Saturn, he just gets right back up, fighting. Similar to what we saw of the jailer piece, right? Now, obviously, these guys still have their whole consciousness intact, so maybe there's like a whole nother level. But your the second half of your point, where Venus Juro, we see him kind of like transform, where he's like half human, half horse or whatever. Still makes me think that this is not actually a devil fruit, right? It makes me think that this is, I mean, obviously on top of like all the pentagram stuff, which we still don't know anything of. But it makes me think that maybe their true form just are these demonic forms, and they can kind of pretend like they can put on these masks and pretend to be human so that the whole world isn't freaked out by the fact that the world government is run by these giant demons. But yeah, like that's what I kind of thought when I saw Venus Juro transform him. Just like he's clearly able to like morph his body, like, and yeah. the
Well,
other
here,
the
here's
other
what I'm
thing that
saying.
I want to bring, yeah.
Here, what I'm saying too is I think because I agree with you. I don't think these are just devil fruit powers, but I do think that whatever devil fruit powers come from, this is a more pure, more original version of that. And as we learn about the nature of the world, like I don't know, we'll see. This could have something to do with this secret that Vegapunk's going to say. This definitely not just going to be, oh, there's someone sitting on a throne, man, because that would just be such a disappointing reveal at this point. I can't even begin to describe how disappointing that would be. But I think as we start to learn I think as we begin to learn about the nature of the world, I think there's going to be something that helps us understand where these powers come from, and what happened with theirs has to do with the nature of where devil fruits come from. But it does make me wonder if maybe smile fruits are not as like quirky and weird and failed as we sort of think they are, because he started looking kind of like a smile fruit user when he's half human body and half like centaur horse thing, whatever.
Yeah, I don't really agree with that. I think it's pretty clear that the smile devil fruits, in my opinion, will just fail devil fruits. I think the part that makes me believe that, like your point about, oh, maybe whatever ability these guys have is more closely related to the pure ability of or power from the devil than these devil fruits even themselves are, is the ice ability that Venus Juro has. And the reason I say that is because we know that Brooke has been to the underworld, right? When he died, he says his soul went to the underworld, and he was given a second chance at life, obviously because of his devil fruit. And
Right.
as he kind of learned how to use his powers, he talks about like the ice ability that he has being due to like the cold of the underworld, right? And honestly, a lot of these slash attacks that Venus Juro was using on the Pacifista, this chapter, where like it was drawn in the exact same way, it makes me believe that there's a connection there, right? That there's in some way his power is being drawn also from the underworld. And so I think that like that's why I'm on board with, yeah, it's probably not a devil fruit. It's probably something more closely related to the true devil or the underworld or whatever. But I don't think smile fruits have anything to do with this or are related in any way. I think that's kind of just a coincidence that that's what that transformation looks like.
Bro, first of all, there's no coincidences in One Piece. Did I say coincidence?
None? There's none. What
I
what
bet
about
there's
what
no
what about
coincidences.
Kuina and Tashigi? Why
Bro,
do
you
they
already
look
know
the
that's not
same?
a coincidence, bro. You know that's not a coincidence, and there's gonna be some kind of narrative reason for that. Bro, plus Kuina is Tashigi's. Mom, what was that theory? Bro, Tashigi Kawina is Mihawk, bro. What are you talking about? We already
Uh,
established that Kawina is Mihawk, so that's definitely not that's definitely not a coincidence.
you bought Becky lunch or dinner yet for that bet? Was it Becky?
It was Becky. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I did buy what Becky was just recently in Providence, and I said, okay, Becky, I give up. I do not believe that Kuina and Tashigi are the same person anymore. I took her to Soban. We had some lovely like duck bogi and maybe the cheese ramen. It was a beautiful beautiful time. Just to be clear, that I am willing to admit when I am wrong. Maybe it takes a while sometimes, but I very happily bought that dinner. But I am also interested in the powers of the Elder Stars in this way, and I think this idea to bring it back to what you're saying about Brooke, and it actually made me think about Full Metal Alchemist. I actually just finally found a volume 26, and my Full Metal Alchemist collection is complete all the way 1 through 27. Shout out. Um, and it makes me think about when the way they explained it in that story, like transmuting a soul, is this kind of like you have the person's body and then you have the soul and then the spirit is kind of like what links the body and the soul, and I wonder if there's some kind of connection to the to if there's some kind of an explanation for how like souls work and how you get powers, how it has to do with the underworld, like maybe that's part of what this source of energy is. Like it might not literally be the underworld, but this has the source of energy we're talking about for a lot of these things in the One Piece world that helps us understand how things like will, hockey, etc., are actually manifest in the real world. You know, I think that like having that kind of connection and understanding would really flesh out some of the would really flesh out some of things. Like, we don't have any real idea why Brooke has ice powers. We just think, oh, that's like kind of funny or whatever. But being able to understand that there's some nature to that has to do with devil fruits, it helps explain just like a lot more. Maybe that's what we could be looking for in Vegapunk's Revelation.
Again, I think you're wrong. I think it's crazy. I think it's, what's crazy? I Ever since we released that episode, I consume One Piece content in general, and all of these content creators that I've seen are all just assuming the same thing that I was assuming when we recorded that episode, that Vegapunk is going to be talking about, oh, the world government is evil, the world government wipes out islands, the world government does X, Y, and Z, and meanwhile, Jordan in his own little bubble somehow thinks that everyone else is on crack. And that
But
his
hold on, wait,
belief,
hold on, wait. Oh my, did you see this?
his,
Well, I just got
his
a
belief.
notification, bro. I just got a notification on my phone that, bro, we got a major crack epidemic right now in the One Piece community. Bro, have you heard about this? Bro,
It's crazy.
there's crack just all over the streets, all over the YouTubers. That's bro. I didn't even realize that was. I knew you were on some crack, but like now I'm realizing that it's like a much bigger problem in our. Did you hear about this?
Did they get the kids? Did they get the kids too?
Bro, they got the kids. They got the
Oh
kids
my
on
god.
TikTok. They got the kids on YouTube. It's
Oh
it's like just about
no.
everybody but me is on crack right now.
Dang. Like, that's crazy. You need to get on that. That must be some good crack.
Hey,
Real
hey,
quick before we go
give me.
into awards and predictions, I want to ask you about what you thought about Lucci and Zoro's fight wrapping up.
Yeah, well, it was quick, and I just feel like it seems clear that Zoro was. It's kind of like when he was like taking forever with Apu, and then he sees Kiku's arm fall down, and he's like, okay, let me just one shot this dude. Like, homie sandbags until it's time to go, and then he was ready when he was ready.
Yeah, it felt that way to me too. But that's not how Oda used to write Zoro. This is not. He was never the one to take his opponent lightly. Or you remember against like Kaku when he's fighting and he's getting
Right.
mad at himself for thinking that Kaku's transformations are foolish and like laughing and stuff. I don't know. It's behavior that you expect to see out of Luffy, not Zoro, and I feel like Oda just kind of did that. to be like, let me occupy Zoro for a little bit so that he doesn't jump into this fight.
To me, I feel you on that, but also it's like you almost don't realize how injured Zoro was for however many fights earlier in the series. You know what I'm saying? It's like he fought
Mhm.
Hachi and he was like basically just like we didn't have Chopper yet, so he just like had like stitches all the way through his whole body, right? Like
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
Mihawk fight. Like he fought Kabaji and I'm I guess no, he got hurt fighting Kabaji and then he got hurt, like Zoro basically was injured for like a major part of the first, quarter or so of the series. I think the idea that it's not that he's taking his opponents lightly. I think he just like it's like with Asura, right? He could have been like, "Oh, I'm going to use Asura at the beginning." He just holds it off and just tries these moves once he decides he's going to get super serious. I don't know why he does that, but that part seems to be his nature to me.
Well, yeah, and that part about Asura though is kind of how mangas are just written in general, right? Like Luffy could have used Jet Gatling against Lucci from the beginning, but he didn't, right? Because it wouldn't have been as climactic. Sanji could have used like Diablo Jambe at the start of it, but he did like so that part is acceptable to me. It's more just like, man, you could have one shot him easily, like you low diffed him at the end, and
Bro, that's what
for
he did to
some
Apu
reason,
too. That's all I'm saying. Man. He did it to Apu as well. Like, this is not new for this dude.
I don't know. It's fine. I want to get into the awards show, or do you want to do
Yes,
predictions
sir.
first?
We can do a award show, man. And can I add a special thing that we haven't talked about that I wish we would have done earlier?
Okay.
It's kind of this is a small. Can we rank the designs of the Elder Stars? I feel like
Sure.
that's a suitable thing to do in awards. I
Okay.
realized as we were
Okay.
talking, I was like, this would be a fun thing to do. Give me your
Yeah,
one
let's
through
do it.
five.
Okay. One being the most interesting design, five being the
So start
least.
with five. Yeah, start with five. Start with five.
Start with five. Okay, I'm gonna go with War Curie, the boar, as
Hmm.
number five. Then I'm gonna go with the sandworm as number four.
What? Okay, okay, go on,
Then
go
I'm
on.
gonna then you know then I'm gonna go with Saturn as number three. Then I'll go with Venus Juro as number two, the horse. And then I'll go with the Phoenix looking Mars as number one.
Bro, that's crazy. You put that worm so low, bro.
That's what the worm solo. I mean, it's just a
Yeah,
worm,
man.
bro.
Come on, bro. No, it goes
It's
hard, bro.
just
Look at that mouth,
it's
dude.
just bro.
Wait,
I don't
don't
know
don't
what
make
it
it
is
weird.
about
Wait, don't
mouths.
make it weird. Hey, don't make it weird.
Oh
Come on,
my
man.
God. Okay.
The boar is five for sure. I'm with you on that. I think Saturn is four. Saturn just is kind of like a weird, and it's also he's like an ushi, so he's like a cow, but he also just looks like a spider. That's weird. Uh, I gotta go with the Bakotsu Venus Juro number three. Kind of, the fact that if he was just a normal horse, it would be lame, but kind of being a skeleton is cool.
Yeah.
Number two,
Exactly.
gotta get, so I'm with you on the bird thing. The phoenix looking thing is pretty exciting, and it flies. You gotta just love flying animals, and the worm is number one, man. It's hilarious. It's
Number
so Oda,
one.
bro. It's
Oh my
so
God.
Oda. It's
I would have.
so Oda.
I could see maybe putting it at three for me because I feel like maybe I put Saturn ahead of it because we got Saturn first, it was and all that. I'm like, it's not better than the horse or the phoenix. There's no way.
It's the most Oda of all of them. Like, how can you not just like look at that and start cracking up at just like how comically large it's like the proportions. I mean, I'm not trying to just keep talking about big mouths, but
Yeah. Again, we might need another like psychology or psychiatry therapeutic session this time for you instead of me. I don't know what it is about this mouth, man. Like, you just keep on coming back to it because it's the only only notable thing about this whole creature.
It is, but it's so funny, man. Like, we're gonna at some point. I'm gonna add to it the future time. We're gonna come back at some point in the break week and talk about funniest animals in One Piece. And I think that when we look at why One Piece is and Oda has been so hilarious and fantastic with animals over the course of the series, I think we're gonna look back on this worm and say this is really representative of something that Oda has really excelled at. Um, but I know I went a little off the rails there. I was going a little went a little
Okay.
rogue with that. I do have a regular award to give today. I call this the Made the Salad Award. And I'm gonna explain why it's called the Made the Salad Award. It's because when I was in college, we were preparing for like end of cross country season 4. And basically, we had never done an actual formal. We had to clean the whole house. We had freshman cleaning day. We had like clean up all these grimy floors in our college house. We put all the furniture into the little closet that was on the third floor of the house. Like we you had people making lasagna, people like buying all this like wine, like people doing setup, decorations, things like that. And this one girl was like, oh, I made salad. And it was like, man, you're not helpful. like, 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 like,
Oh
I
my
can't
God.
really. It's like you had these other people, a couple of guys, couple of girls, like making these like really nice lasagna dishes, putting a lot of effort into things, cleaning. And this one was like,
You're
I
about to
chopped some
steal
lettuce.
my award. You're about to steal my award. Go ahead and finish.
Yeah,
You're about to steal my award.
well.
Go. Yeah, go
So
ahead.
the Made the Salad Award goes to Usopp because he's just like,
Oh,
and I
okay.
helped. Like it's like two. He gets like one little frame. Oh, and I saved the. I stopped the Sunny. So this is my moment for this arc. I helped. Okay, not and that. Okay, everyone else go back to being important and doing real things. But you said, and I helped. I made the salad. So that's Usopp this award.
I thought you were actually because my award is almost the exact same, but it's going to a different character. I thought we were about to do have the exact same award. Mine was when you get an A on the group project, even though you haven't done any work. Because
Right, right,
everyone's been in
right.
that situation before. You might
Yeah,
have been the
yeah.
person who did all the work and had to just deal with the loafer in your group, or you might have been the loafer like Jordan. I don't know.
What?
Next chapter, we see Venus Duro running around, disabling all the pacifista. We see Mars going up to uh, try and break down the force field, and also Jupiter helping out Saturn to try and fight Luffy. But what has Topman been doing this whole chapter? He literally did nothing. He did nothing. You know, you literally have the sun god right in front of you. You have a timer that is about to expose everything where you and he's just chilling. So I'm gonna give this award to War Curie for the Gorosei are putting in some solid work. They're turning around the tides of the battle, so they get an A overall for the group project. But Topman hasn't really been doing much, or not? Is a War Curie? Yeah, Top. Yeah, I think it's the same person. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Well,
that's my award.
I just want to be clear about the stray that I caught about how I'm the person who's loafing off in the group. You know
You
what
tell me
I'm saying?
you aren't the loafer in the
Whoa,
group
whoa,
project.
whoa. Okay, okay. Like, it really depended on the group project and the class. Like, there were some where it was almost would be annoying to some of the people because I definitely was just like being the loafer on the group project or the homework. Like there was some math, like it was like a econometrics one I always remember, and these people were getting annoyed because I hadn't really like read the chapter, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna start ignoring you." And then I just kind of like I looked at it and thought really hard, and then I kind of had the intuition that figured out the problem, and they were like, "God dang it!" Like we have to acknowledge you now. Uh, but I'll say
Oh man.
my favorite group project story was in business school before we get into predictions. And it was in business school, you have to every chapter or every week every week you had a different group project basically. And there were a lot of them that I really like did not do that much on. But then this one came where we were talking about managing data sets. You know, because I was in grad school to run. I wasn't there to learn stuff. I told the director of the school. So, you know, we're managing data sets and have to do some like weighted averages and stuff like that. And I just got it. And like I did research on Stata in undergrad for like for an education professor who was like managing data sets. So like you ask me to do weighted averages, I can jump in Stata and do that in, you know, 30 minutes. So while I was not always the most productive on the rest of them, we show up for this group project. I saw it. I said, I did the whole thing in 30 minutes. I sent it to everyone. No one ever had a thing to say to me because I did the whole homework. No one even opened it and looked at it. They were looking at some answer to the case that was on the internet, and that answer was wrong. So I had to convince them that my answer was right, and the ones on the internet were wrong. Uh, and they were.
I want to give
So
I want to give you a quick example of a
mm,
group project then, because I like that story, and I feel like we've got time.
tell me
This
about it.
was in college. This was in college, my senior year. I was taking this course. There was just some basic biology course, and the it was the course came with a lab, and basically the assignment was to pick a paper and to present it like a journal club kind of thing, right? You
Sure.
pick like present the findings and all that stuff. It was, and the paper had to be related to something we were learning in class. Only thing
Right.
is, I had switched my major at this point, so I had to take a second year course that was now a prerequisite that I hadn't taken before. So as a fourth year, I'm taking this second year course. I didn't really know anyone in the class, right? So
Mm.
in labs, I had usually work by yourself, but I didn't know anyone, and this was supposed to be a group project. So uh, I just ended up being paired with these two Asian girls that happened to be sitting at my bench
Oh yeah, yeah,
when they
yeah.
gave us
Go
the
on,
assignment.
go on. Yeah.
I don't think the story's not going where you think it's going. Right? And so we all brought the paper, like each paper that we had searched, and theirs were both so bad and unrelated to the stuff that we had been doing. I
Oh
was like, yeah,
no.
this, we can just use this paper if you guys want. They're like, okay, like awesome. So we ended up going with the paper that I picked, and then we have a couple of weeks to make our presentation, right? I was like,
Mm.
hey, person A, why don't you handle the introduction and you handle like the discussion section. I can do the results section, blah blah blah, right? And I'm like delegating tasks. I make my slides and for that section, and we have like a whole shared PowerPoint. And I look at what they're writing, and I'm like, bro, this doesn't make any sense. It's like,
Dang.
I felt really bad because they were both international students. English wasn't their first language, and it
Right,
was very
right,
clear
right,
that English was their first language.
right,
But at the
right, right,
same
right.
time, I'm just like, bro,
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
is
I'm not trying to fail
my
this
brain is
class. I'm
now
not trying to fail this
my,
presentation. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, my grade is now tied to both of your performances. So I was like, you know what, guys, forget it. I'm writing everything. So I made the whole presentation. And again, it's not hard to do a journal club, right? But I just did
Mm.
everything for them, and I even wrote a script for them. I was like, just say this. I wrote you a whole script of stuff to talk about
Dang,
and what to
wow.
say for your presentation. If you just
Dang,
say the
bro.
stuff I wrote, you'll be fine.
Dang, bro. This man's just like I'm gonna do it myself kind of guy, huh?
Let me just do this myself. Yeah.
That's crazy. I can't believe you went through that, man. Well, yeah. Well, the good news is it's good to know that if I'm ever in some kind of group project with you, I can trust you to take care of things if I'm ever slacking. Just like whenever I forget to bring S class and F class theories. So,
But before that,
but
we gotta do our predictions. You didn't give me a prediction for the next
man,
chapter.
don't. I wasn't skipping that, man. It just so happened that I was bringing up the theories, man. I got a prediction for you, man. I think
Okay,
in this
okay.
chapter we're gonna. I don't think that M is gonna show up in Egghead, but I think they're gonna appear somewhere in the chapter. We saw the little Den Den Mushi looking thing where the Elder Stars used to be, and I think we're gonna end up having some kind of visual or understanding of where M is and see their reaction to kind of what's happening in the next chapter.
Do you think we see their face, or is their face still going to be shrouded?
Nah, when I space still gonna be shrouded.
My prediction is funny. You said there's no way this is going to happen before you even knew this was going to be a prediction. My prediction, my prediction is that Zoro and Venus Juro are going to clash in the next.
Oh my God, dude. Right, like
When you said that, when you said there's no way, and then I clarified, I was like, you mean at all, ever in the series? And you're like, nah, they're not fighting each other. I was like, oh,
no,
you're gonna love
I'm not saying that they're never going to like cross swords. I'm just saying
it.
that like we're not having this like series of 1v1s, man, where it's just like in the end game, it's like Luffy versus him and Zoro versus Venus Zero because we saw a dude with a sword.
No,
That's
I
all
don't
I'm saying.
think that's gonna happen. I don't think that's happening next chapter. I think Venus is just running around the island, messing stuff up, and um, in order for them to get off, they're probably gonna have to deal with him. So, I think him and Zoro will have a bit of.
We'll see what happens, but it could. This is going to be a fun to find out. It could be that we'll see what it could. Straw Hats could end up running away again, but I definitely don't think we're getting out of here having defeated all of the Elder Stars. I think that's something that we
Definitely not.
definitely agree
That's
on.
definitely not. Yeah.
But Abraham, I know that you have a special theory that we're going to get into today. You wanna share this? We could call it S class versus F class, but it sounds like you're pretty sure it's going to be S class. So let's hear what you got.
It's 100% gonna be S class. It's from this YouTube channel called Dax Sake. I found this channel relatively recently. I like a lot of the content. Some of the content he puts out is kind of we out there and weird, but this theory was a theory on who the man marked by flames is, and I'm genuinely convinced that he has solved this.
Hmm.
Major. So before do you want me to tell you who his answer is first, or do you want me to give you some of the background points of this theory first?
It's interesting because I'm pretty sure I watched this video a while ago, but I can't remember it. So I think you start with the background points and see if I can remember who it's going to be by the time we get to it.
Okay. So the biggest premise of this theory is that the last road poneglyph is connected to Whitebeard. And the idea
Ooh,
behind this is that during Roger's flashback, we see his journey as he finds all four road poneglyphs, right? And we see that one of them is in Zoe, one of them was in Whole Cake Island, one of them was on Wano, and one of them was in Fishman Island, right?
mhm.
Now, those first three, we are still in those locations. But Weak Mom still has hers. There's still one in Wano, there's
Right,
still one in Zoe. So the
right.
last road poneglyph that the man marked by flames has to be the one that was in Fishman Island when Roger was on his journey. And the
Okay.
the idea is that, well, after Roger died, the person who ended up protecting Fishman Island, right, like Whitebeard, that became Whitebeard's territory. So the disappearance of the road poneglyph, like like it is very likely that Whitebeard is the reason why this road poneglyph is missing, whether or not he was hiding that information for whatever reason. Like if he thought some pirates that would be seeking it out would do some bad things to the fishermen if they knew that that road poneglyph was on that island. Regardless, it seems like there's a pretty strong connection between Whitebeard and that last road poneglyph, right? So the other thing is that as Whitebeard is preparing for Marineford, there's a good chance he probably figured he was going to die during that war. And Dax Sake is pretty much like, what if before he went off to Marineford as a contingency plan, he's like, let me make sure I hide this road poneglyph so that if I go down in this war, it's like not just open access to any emperor that just wants to run up on Fishman Island, right? And so mm, the question is, who on Whitebeard's crew, or who does Whitebeard have a good enough relationship with that would be able to that he would trust to protect this road poneglyph and also satisfy the conditions of the man marked by flames, or he's surrounded by whirlpools, all this other stuff. And the answer that Dax Sake gets to is that it's actually Masked Deuce. Have you heard of Mask Deuce before?
Masked Deuce.
Yeah, Mask Deuce. He has a mask, and his name is Deuce. Yeah, he was
Wait, is
actually
he was
the
he the old was he the old emperor, the old warlord who Ace defeated in order
no,
to?
no,
Okay,
no. So that was a different theory that I had presented to you a while ago about
okay,
that old
I'm
warlord. Yeah,
remembering
yeah,
that. Okay,
yeah,
that was an interesting one too. Then no, I don't remember who
yeah.
Masked Deuce is.
So
I must not have
so
watched this
he's a
video.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a character that I don't even know if he's made an appearance in the One Piece chapters themselves, but he was the former right hand man of the Spade Pirates, Ace's crew before he joined Whitebeard's crew. And he also became one of the doctors on Whitebeard's ship after Ace joined the crew. Um, and so a lot of the information that we have about Mask Deuce actually comes from the Ace novels. And the Ace novels are technically not canon, but apparently Oda did supervise the writing of these Ace novels. So it's like, take it with a grain of salt that again, this is not 100% canon, but it was supervised by Oda. When Ace and Mask Deuce first met, they met on this island called the what is it? The Ant Lions, it's like the Ant Lions Hill or something like that.
Hmm.
Let me see. I wrote it down. Yes, the Ant Lions Pit, and it's an island that's actually surrounded by currents that creates a giant whirlpool that would pull people in. And the way that the two of them were able to escape the island is that they actually found the Mera Mera no Mi on this island. And they were so hungry that they decided to split it in half and they each ate half of Ace's devil fruit. But Ace ate his first, so he's the one who got the powers. Deuce didn't get any of them.
Hmm.
And from the scraps that they were able to find on the island, Master Deuce was able to build a ship, and Ace that became the striker, and Ace used his fire abilities to allow them to escape into escape the whirlpool surrounding this ant lion's pit. And there's a quote from one of the Ace novels where Master Deuce says, "Finally finished building a ship. Our hands and clothes were filthy black now. Once Ace had trained himself properly, we burned all the wood we were using to make the ship. Charring and carbonizing the surface of the wood made it more durable and resistant to fire and water. Much better than untreated wood, according to a sailor's journal I once read." So they basically like carbonized the surface of the wood that they were using to build their ship in order to, I guess, make the wood more durable. I don't really know how that works, but this is apparently what was written in the. So you know, the the implication, not even the implication, it straight up said that the wood was blackened, that their hands were blackened, and we know that the uh the man marked by flames sails around in a black ship. And the other idea is, I should have mentioned that Mask Deuce has a flame dial that he uses. So for a while, he was after Ace died, he was sailing around the seas on the Striker using a flame dial that contained Ace's flames in it. But what if, let's say, instead of sailing around on the Striker, he was sailing around on this a ship, like a traditional ship, but you put like the flame dial at the bottom, right? And you can imagine that heating up the water around the ship will create currents because you're messing with the temperature of the water, and that could create whirlpools around the ship if anyone were to try and approach it. And yeah,
Bro.
so
I,
him being the man marked by flames is like, look, he was Ace's first mate. He ate half of the Mera Mera no Mi. Um, like there's all. I'm 100% convinced that this guy is the man marked by flames. But what do you think about everything that I just told
Hold on, 100% convinced, man. Come on, man.
you?
You can't be
100%.
100% convinced. Bro, I'm adding onto this. I'm adding onto this to our topic list, YouTuber ranking where we discuss different things from different YouTubers because Doc Sake just like because Doc Sake is one where people sometimes come to me saying, "Oh my God, I've like found this. It's like the most amazing thing," and then it's like his end is that like we're gonna get to Laugh Tale and it's like a statue of Luffy. And it's like, bro, like that's not it. This guy manages to convince people somehow of having these with these silly arguments with good, with good, uh, with complicated reasoning to get people so convinced of these silly things, man. This is a non-canon character, man. You can't tell me that 100% this non-canonical character. Like I can't get behind a
He's a canon
non-canonical.
character. No, no, he is a canon
Okay.
character.
Oh,
It's some
okay.
of the events that happened in the Ace novel. So, like him eating half of the Mera Mera no Mi, for example, like that is not a canon event that has happened, but he is 100% a canon character. He was the like the right hand man of the Spade Pirates. He was on Whitebeard's ship. All of that is canon.
Okay. That's cool. Man, I can't get behind that, man. That's that, bro.
What?
I think this is an
What?
S theory, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro.
What?
This
There's
is,
no way. There's no way.
bro.
You're
This
just
is like,
fucking.
no, bro. You like, I think the theory you brought me that I gave an S class theory, where it's the old warlord who Ace beat. I thought that was more of an S class theory. Like, we're getting into, you're getting into the reading of these non-canonical novels to be like, oh, his ship was like burnt black, and because he just had to char the wood, which is like a totally reasonable thing. And like, oh, he used the flame dial. Like, what if he used the flame dial and then that changed the temperature of the waters? That's far too much of a. If you would have shown me a scene in all of this where he actually did that, and we have some amount of precedent for him being responsible for whirlpools, that would be the kind of thing that I can get behind. I think that we're gonna, for me, it's like it's. I'm not even saying it's impossible. This is just, I find the reasoning to be far too what ify, and the character to be far too fringe and not particularly interesting for this to be
I,
an S class theory.
I feel like you're being okay. I think you're being a little short sighted, though, right? Do you agree that this last road Chronicles should be connected to Whitebeard? Because we know for a fact it was on Fishman Island, and we know that within a year of Roger dying, that Whitebeard made that his territory.
I'm not convinced of that, although I think it's interesting. I think that the idea that that would have to be the one person who it would be, like I don't, like Marco could be the man marked by flames. Like many other, and obviously I think that's unlikely, but many other people could be the are connected to Whitebeard in some kind of way for them to be the man marked by flames. Like I don't think that it being connected to Whitebeard leads me all the way down the kind of reasoning to then believe that Max Deuce would be the character.
But think about other stuff you've said, though, right? People like, why would people refer to Dragon as the man marked by flames when we know he's Dragon? He's a very, very
Right.
famous character. Nobody's referring to him like that. Why would anyone refer to Marco as the man marked by flames? He's fucking the first mate of the Whitebeard. He's one of the most famous pirates in the world, right? That's why a lot of people have speculated that this is not a character that we've met in the series yet. So
You're
again,
right.
I just
You're right about that, but I think that like you're right about the idea that if it's someone who's too famous, it'll feel like that's a weird thing to say. However, I do think the idea that it's a character that we've met who we might underrate their importance. And I don't have a great answer for who this might be, right? Like I'm not even saying like it's definitely not Masked Deuce, but I think that the idea that it could be another character who we've interacted with and who feels like they're not as important to the story to this point, but then we find out actually has this higher level of importance, I think would be really interesting and potentially, and definitely like more interesting than this. Like honestly, part of the reason it's an F class theory to me is I don't find it to be a particularly, it wouldn't be a reveal that I would find particularly interesting or exciting, more so than it would be if it was a character that we had some kind of history with that I could then look back at and say, oh, I kind of see what you were doing here, Oda.
no, I couldn't disagree more with you on that, but that's fine. We can move on. I think that's crazy. I just can't wait a year from now or whenever it is when we find out who the man marked by flames is. And we'll be like, Mass
Bro,
Deuce. Who was he? Oh my God, the first mate of the Spain Pirates?
Bro,
Joe's gonna be
I
walking
just
in here with a face.
I don't have enough time to wait for you to be wrong about that. Like, first, I'm just focused on enjoying you being wrong and all of the YouTubers of this freaking epidemic. I'm just waiting for that first about this Vegapunk reveal. I can't even think about your wrongness on this because I'm so focused on getting us through this epidemic that has inflicted our community uh, with these drugs. But that's what we got for the chapter. We got to move on. We got 11. That might be a pretty big chapter. That's a kind of cool number coming up next week.
Yeah, it is.
But we got something that happened in the world of anime and manga as we move on to, the culture part. Abraham, you're wearing a Dragon Ball Kame House shirt right now. Um, obviously, that's in honor of Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, the original mangaka, who recently passed away at age 68, so still relatively young. I just kind of want to ask you openly as we kind of jump off the segment, what does Dragon Ball mean to you?
It, so the my introduction to anime was actually through Dragon Ball Z, not through One Piece, Naruto, any of these series. I the first, I guess you could say maybe Pokemon. I might have watched Pokemon before I watched Dragon Ball Z, but I honestly don't even really consider Pokemon to be an anime in that sense, even though it is. And it's it's a series that reached an icon status that I don't think any an anime or manga has ever or will ever reach in like going forward. And what I mean by that is One Piece is obviously more popular in terms of manga sales. It's the best selling manga of all time. But you can talk to people who don't know anything about anime, who've never seen anime in their life, and they know what Super Saiyan is. They know what it means to go Super Saiyan. I I was talking to a buddy of mine in lab, and I told him I was like, yeah, Akira Toriyama passed this last week, and RIP to one of the goats, all this stuff. And he's like, who's that? I was like, oh, he was the creator of Dragon Ball Z. I've never heard of Dragon Ball Z before. And I was so shocked because he's around our age, and I just didn't expect that anyone our age, regardless of how into anime they were, had never heard of Dragon Ball Z before. And I asked him if he had ever heard of uh, Super Saiyan before. He's like, no, I've never heard of it before. And to me, that scene has gotten to it's almost like the Luke I am your father scene in Star Wars, where even if you've never seen Star Wars before in your life, you're like, yeah, I know that scene. I know the Luke I am your father scene because it's just an iconic scene in film and cinema in general. I think that first Super Saiyan transformation that Goku goes through to me it's that level of icon. It's the most iconic scene in the history of anime, I think, bar none. And it's just yeah, it transcends anime. It's just a part of pop culture that everyone loves. Not everyone that anime, even people who say I don't mess with anime are will still be like, yeah, but I watch Dragon Ball
Right,
Z.
right, right,
Like
right.
it's always gonna have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, man. You know, I was talking with a friend about this just the other day. And I was talking about why I love One Piece and anime, and they said, "Oh, I've like watched Dragon Ball Z. It was like fine or whatever." And I guess I was kind of like, yeah, it's like it's not like it's that great or like special of like a series when you look at it today. But for all of these things that we have now, the big three, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, like all the things that have come past it, Demon Slayer, like, you know, Dragon Ball was the foundation for all of that. It was the first one to sort of begin with this formula of a new bad guy appears, and now we have to just like get way stronger. And now, and now we defeat this person, we level up. Now we're Super Saiyan, we beat Frieza. Now Cell appears. Now we're Super Saiyan 2. Now, I was it Boo. Before Boo, we were Super Saiyan 3 during Boo, and then we also got more fusion and whatever. But just so Super Saiyan God, like etc. Even Kaioken way back towards the beginning. Um, but it was the first series that gave us this formula that basically all of the other series had riffed on, where in Dragon Ball the stakes sort of became, almost like comically large by the end. And I think that what's so fitting about it when you actually go back, I go back and I read the old Dragon Ball volumes that I have, I think I have maybe 1 through 9 and 13 or so. And it's just a hilarious series. It's just like from the beginning, you don't realize when you just are used to Dragon Ball Z exactly how much of a comedy it was from the jump. And I think in a way that really makes me appreciate how, yes, these stakes became cartoonish. Yes, we were just like, the world is, and now Beerus can flick his finger and now half the world's destroyed and we just move on like that. But for a series that was just about this random kid who, and having bad guys who kill, what's his freaking name? The Chinese assassin who kills guys by with their tongue, with his tongue and hitting him in the forehead, and having a secret technique where you try to put Piccolo in a rice cooker.
Bro, what about in the tournament where Krillin is fighting that dude that smells like shit, and everyone's like, "Oh no, I can't fight. He smells so bad." And then Goku pipes up, he's like, "Krillin, you don't have a nose." He's like, "Oh yeah, you don't have a."
Right, right. And so a series that it was funny like that, that really created the foundation for so much of the anime and manga that we really loved, that wasn't too serious, but also had this amazing fighting element and this amazing ability to raise the stakes that then something like One Piece was able to perfect with a more complex story. It's special, and obviously just incredibly sad that the guy who created the series that's the foundation for so much of the anime and manga that so many people love today is passed away at only 68.
And the other thing is that I agree with what you said. It's not the most well written plot line wise, right? There's a lot of stories that are much more well written than DBZ, but it's become such a mainstream thing for people to be like, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball. It's a badly written manga. It's not well written. The power system is bad. This and that and bad. It's like, and I hope that with his passing, people will maybe stop, because there's a lack of an appreciation for what that series represented to shonen overall. Like, yeah, you're right. It wasn't like the plot of the series is not driven forward all that great, right? And I remember watching a lot of these animated scenes of like Frieza versus Goku, and it's the same like 4 moves on repeat for a while, or the pacing isn't great, but it didn't matter because that's yeah, it just it like you said, it established so many of the tropes, and it gave them blueprint for what it took for shonen to be successful in general. With these like I'm sure there were tournament arcs in these combat series beforehand, but like the Dragon Ball tournament arc, is that one of the OGs? Like it kind of is.
It absolutely is. And I think exactly what you're saying, right? I could go through and run down a list of complaints I have. The things I complain about in something like Wano are in particular because we already had a Dragon Ball. We've already had a whole big three. We've already had however many series that have been however successful. There wasn't that when Dragon Ball came around. Those things were not something that existed. And so, to hold it to that standard when it's really a comedy series about when it's really a comedy series that's just about a new villain appearing is totally unfair. Like, yes, I could complain about how some of our original cast like Krillin gets left behind, or how Gohan was supposed to eventually be stronger than Goku, and then we were just like, nah, forget that. He has to go to school or whatever. We wouldn't have these series that we feel compelled to make these complaints about, and that we feel compelled to be able to have these sort of like deep theoretical conversations 30 years after they've started, about power scaling, about whether Luffy or Zoro should be able to defeat Lucci, about how strong the Elder Stars are, or even just where we know we're at the final boss stage of everything. If you didn't have stories like Dragon Ball that were already about our characters just getting stronger and going on a journey. And so I guess like with that, it's just thank you Toriyama for giving us the foundation for all the anime and manga that we have come to love.
Can I ask you a real quick question about Dragon Ball? What would you
Mm.
say is your favorite scene, or if you could tell me your favorite character or your favorite scene, pick one. If you don't have a favorite scene off the top of your head.
Definitely like the original Super Saiyan 1 scene is great, and also Goku and it's fine. I never even like watched this whole arc when I was a kid, the Cell arc, but I definitely have like watched the Goku and Gohan defeating Cell scene, and that one like the music goes hard. Just like Super Saiyan 1, Super Saiyan 2, it's just like hard to beat either of those scenes.
Yeah. For me, it's the father son Kamehameha wave for sure. I
Yeah.
actually one of my most probably my most prized poster is an art it was art of the father son Kamehameha wave, and it was signed by the voice actor for Gohan, the English voice actor for
Wow.
Gohan,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is the version of Dragon Ball Z that I ended up watching as a kid anyway, right? So like it's yeah. It's
But before I close us out, can you give us a voice actor? Like give us an Abraham voice act that scene, man. Come on. I know you know the words.
I don't actually know all the words.
Ah, come on, man. I know you know at least
I'm
some of
not
them.
strong enough.
Yes.
You're dead because of me, Dad. I'm so sorry.
And then what? And then what?
Roger, I don't remember. I don't remember all the
I,
things.
I used to watch
It's
that
been
scene
too
more
long.
often. I wish I
Yeah.
remembered it. I wish I remembered it more because I would jump in and help. But yeah, RIP Toriyama. Thank you, everyone. That's about time. That's what we got. Come back next week for our reaction as we get closer and closer to the Egghead Island incident getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Once again, just like I said, it was going to be a very big incident, not just we beat a single Elder Star, and it's becoming more and more clear as we continue. We are your friends who read One Piece. Help us make more friends by checking us out on TikTok at Friends Who Read One Piece. Uh, thank you to our friend Zach for keeping that live because that's where all the cool kids are right now. Uh, that's all we got today. Peace.
Easy.